Starting next month, your paycheck goes into my account." "You don't need it anyway," Daniel said casually, lifting his coffee like we were talking about the weather. I stood at the counter, hands still damp from rinsing dishes, and looked at him. He didn't blink, just kept sipping like he'd done me a kindness. I nodded, just once. No protest, no raised voice. Not because I agreed, but because I'd already made up my mind. That evening, as always, they came at 7 sharp. I heard their car doors slam, his voice low, hers higher pitched, laughing at something. The key turned in the lock, still his copy, one I'd never asked for back. But when the door opened, the laughter stopped. "Mom." His voice bounced off the bare walls. "Where is everything?" I sat at the kitchen table, the only thing left in the room besides 2 chairs and the folder I'd placed in front of me. The TV was gone. So was the couch, the coffee table, even the little lamp with the crooked shade he used to knock over as a kid. The kitchen shelves were empty. No casserole warming in the oven. His wife stepped in behind him. "What is this?" she said. "Where's dinner?" Daniel's face shifted. "What's going on? What did you do?" "I sold some things," I said, calmly. "Needed the cash." "You didn't even talk to us," he snapped. "How are we supposed to be comfortable here? What are we supposed to eat?" I watched him. Really watched him. And for the first time, I didn't see the boy I raised. I saw a man who expected comfort, who thought of my house as his. "I thought you were handling my finances now," I said. Figured I should prepare. His mouth opened, then shut. His wife crossed her arms, glaring at the folder. Daniel took a step closer, voice low. "You're acting crazy." I didn't answer. I simply slid the folder across the table. Inside were photocopies, bank statements, old receipts, notes. I didn't explain. Not yet. I waited, quiet, steady, watching the mask slip from his face. There was a time I knew the rhythm of my days without checking a clock. Up at 6. Coffee at 6:15. Bus stop by 7. Classroom lights on by 7:30. 30 years of lesson plans and sticky notes. 30 years of kids who forgot their homework and came back later to hug me anyway. I never remarried after Robert left. Daniel was 5. His father took the car, and half the savings left a note about needing space. I covered the debt he left behind so Daniel wouldn't carry the shame. We moved into a smaller place. I sold the piano. I took on summer classes at the community college. When Daniel wanted to study architecture out of state, I co-signed the loan and stopped buying new clothes. It didn't feel like sacrifice. It felt like being a mother. After he graduated, he came back different. Not cruel, just distant. Polite in a way that had nothing to do with love. I thought marriage might soften him again, bring him closer. It didn't. Friday dinners started after their honeymoon. He said it would be good for routine. I was grateful. I spent Fridays grocery shopping, ironing napkins, defrosting pie crusts. I didn't really like baking anymore. I made sure everything was ready before they walked through the door. His wife didn't like clutter, so I cleared the magazines. She didn't eat meat, so I learned new recipes. It was the one constant I could count on. One night a week I saw my son. He never stayed long. They always had plans somewhere else to be. Still, I told myself this was how families stayed close, by not making demands, by making space, by keeping peace. But over time, I stopped showing him new pictures of the house. He didn't notice the fresh coat of paint in the hallway. He didn't ask about the neighbors or how I was sleeping. He smiled, had complimented the food, then left. And I kept clearing the table, believing that if I gave enough eventually, he'd remember what I gave. But that night, watching him read the folder, I realized he didn't remember at all. Daniel stood in the center of the living room, staring at the empty space where the couch used to be. He pointed at the spot like it was a crime scene. "Where's the couch?" he demanded. "Where's the TV? What happened to the rug?" His wife didn't wait. She stepped past him, arms crossed, nose wrinkled. "This is absurd, Sylvia. You knew we were coming." I did, I said. She scoffed. So where's dinner? Or is this your idea of a joke? Daniel turned toward the kitchen. Why would you get rid of everything you didn't even tell us? I didn't realize I needed permission, I said. He blinked at me. It's not about permission. It's just how are we supposed to relax here? Where are we supposed to sit? Eat. He said it, like we shared the house, like his comfort was my duty. His wife chimed in again. We come here every week, for you, to keep you company. And this is how you repay us. I said nothing. Not to her, not to him, because what was left to say? That I'd fed them week after week out of habit and hope that I had scraped together enough each Friday to cook meals they barely acknowledged, that their visits felt less like connection and more like a scheduled service. Daniel stepped closer. Mom, this is really selfish. You could have talked to me before doing something so dramatic. Selfish. The word echoed in my chest like a sharp snap. I thought of the shoes I never bought so he could have basketball camp, the second mortgage for his tuition, the holidays I spent alone so he could go skiing with friends. Selfish? Something clicked in that moment. Quiet and exact. I'd been waiting for kindness that wasn't coming, waiting for someone who had stopped looking at me like a person. Daniel moved to grab the folder. What even is this? I let him take it. Let him flip through the copies. I watched his smile vanish as he realized what I'd been tracking. The next morning, I went to the bank before work. I told myself it was just to check a balance, just to make sure everything was fine. But the truth was, I needed to see it with my own eyes. The teller smiled politely when I handed over my card. Can you print my recent transactions? I asked. All of them, please. She tapped on her keyboard, the sound of keys too quick and mechanical for what felt like such a personal violation. When she handed me the papers, I stepped aside to a small table near the window and began to read. At first, everything looked normal. Groceries, the pharmacy, a gas station near home. Then there it was. $1, $200, withdrawn in cash 3 months ago. A branch across town. My heart knocked against my ribs. I never went there. My card had never left my wallet. Except once. I remembered that day. Daniel had come by unannounced. I'd been in the shower when he arrived. I told him to come in, leave his coat on the rack. When I came out, he was sitting in the living room, flipping through his phone, smiling, like nothing had happened. My purse had been right there on the coffee table. I touched the paper in my hand, tracing the date and time of the withdrawal. It was the same afternoon he'd left early, saying he had a meeting downtown. The teller came over quietly. Would you like me to help you file a claim? I hesitated, the words stuck in my throat. Not yet, I said. Because I already knew what she'd find, and I wasn't ready not yet to see it written in a report that my own son had stolen from me. I folded the papers, slipped them into my bag, and walked out into the sharp morning air. The sky was pale, indifferent. At the stoplight, I took out my phone, scrolled through my messages, and stopped at his name. For the first time, I didn't press call. I went home instead, opened the folder, and started reading every statement I had ever saved. When Daniel was in college, I used to keep a photo of him in my wallet, the one where he's holding a drawing of a house he made in 5th grade. He'd written underneath it, "Someday I'll build one for you, Mom." I carried that picture through every late shift at the registrar's office, through every cold walk home after the bus stopped running. When the school cut hours, I took extra bookkeeping work from a private firm downtown. Some nights, I'd fall asleep with my shoes still on the television, humming in the background. But when the tuition bill came, it was paid on time. Every time. After graduation, he said he needed a little longer to get on his feet. I told him he could stay as long as he wanted. It felt good hearing him move around the house again, the fridge door opening, the faint music from his room upstairs. He saved every paycheck, said he was being smart about the future. For 5 years, I covered everything, the electricity, groceries, insurance, even the streaming subscriptions he used more than I did. He never offered to split a bill, and I never asked. I didn't want to risk the quiet comfort of having him home. Then one day, he announced he was buying a house, 3 bedrooms paid in cash. He handed me the keys to his old room and said, "You can turn it into a sewing space or something." He married a year later. After that, I stopped hearing from him regularly. Calls turned into short texts. Texts turned into silence. Until the Fridays began, those dinners that weren't really dinners, more like obligations he had to endure before returning to his real life. Still, I told myself it was fine. He was busy, successful, happy. I thought that was what mattered. But as I sat at the kitchen table going through the bank statements, the years rearranged themselves in my head. All the hours, the meals, the money, it wasn't generosity. It was erosion. And by the time I realized it, the decade I gave him was already gone. I walked into Mr. Leland Park's office with a manila folder, clutched so tightly in my hands, the edges had curled. He was younger than I expected, early 40s maybe. His tie was crooked in a way that made me trust him more. He asked what brought me in. I placed the folder on the desk and opened it slowly. "I need to know what I'm allowed to do," I said. We went through everything, piece by piece. First, the $1, $200 withdrawal. My account my card used across town on a day I wasn't there. Then the credit card statements, the one I didn't remember signing up for. Electronics, furniture stores. High-end purchases under my name, racking up interest for over a year. Next, the utility bill opened 2 years ago at an address I'd never lived at. His address. And my signature on the form. Only it wasn't my handwriting. I watched Mr. Park's eyes move over each document. He didn't interrupt. He just nodded and made quiet notes in a legal pad. Finally, I handed him the authorization papers Daniel had left on my kitchen table, the ones I hadn't signed. "That's full financial control," Mr. Park said. "Power of attorney. If you'd signed this, he could have emptied every account without consequence." I nodded, but I didn't. He looked at me. "Good. Because what you have here is solid. This isn't just a mistake or miscommunication. It's fraud. Civil at minimum. Possibly criminal." I didn't cry. I didn't sigh. I just took out my notebook and copied down everything he said, word for word. Date, penalties, paper trail, options. At the end, he asked, "Do you want to pursue this legally?" "I want to know I'm not crazy," I said. "You're not." He told me I'd need to file formal disputes, change every password, cancel everything with my name on it. He would help. But I had to decide if I wanted to go all the way. I didn't answer. Not yet. I thanked him, gathered my papers, and stepped back into the autumn wind. By the time I reached home, I already knew what my next step would be. I set the table like I used to when Daniel was little cloth napkins, 2 candles, and his favorite meal from childhood, roasted chicken with sweet carrots and herb potatoes. The house looked cleaner now, stripped of clutter and noise. The couch was gone, the television gone. Only the essentials remained. They arrived right on time, just like before. Daniel gave me a half hug. His wife didn't even bother with the pretense. She walked in like she owned the place, scanning the room, noting what was missing. "I see the furniture still hasn't been replaced," she said, folding her coat over the back of a dining chair. I didn't respond. We sat. I served them. Daniel didn't thank me. He never had. He dug in, immediately chewing, like it was part of some performance, some test of normalcy he thought he still controlled. I watched his eyes as he ate. There was no nostalgia in them, no flicker of memory about school days and scraped knees, no warmth. He ate like it was currency. And I understood finally that to him, that's all I'd ever been. When the plates were cleared, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the folder. Same documents, same offer, same confidence. He placed it beside my water glass. "I assume you've had time to think," he said. "It's really for the best. You're not getting younger and your finances are, well, they're complicated." I picked up the folder, turned it once in my hands, and set it down. "Not yet," I said, with a small smile. His wife rolled her eyes. Daniel didn't even try to hide his irritation this time. He stood up, yanked his coat from the chair, and said nothing more. They left quickly. No goodbyes. No thank you. Just the sound of the door slamming behind them. I sat there a while, hands folded, watching the flame of the candle twitch. What Daniel didn't know, what he couldn't imagine, was that every password had already been changed, every account secured, every thread of the old life quietly cut. Filing the lawsuit felt nothing like I imagined. No thunder, no justice in the air. Just my name on a page, black ink against white paper, and the sound of the clerk stamping the file. I walked out of the courthouse lighter than I'd felt in years. Not happy, just steady. The first voicemail came that evening. Daniel's voice, low and tight. "Mom, what are you doing? This is ridiculous. You can't actually think I stole from you." The next one came an hour later. Quieter. "Please call me. Let's fix this before it gets ugly." Then the messages multiplied, half angry, half desperate. I didn't delete them. I just listened. Once then, turned off my phone. 3 days later, his lawyer called. A man with a smooth voice and a hint of pity, the kind that makes you want to hang up. "Mrs. Carrington, our client, would like to resolve this privately. He's prepared to repay the full amount, including interest, and cover your legal expenses." I said nothing. The silence stretched until he added, "We can have papers drawn up this week." I took a breath. "I'll agree," I said. "But I want one more thing." He hesitated. "What's that?" "I want it in writing that he committed financial fraud," I said. "Not a misunderstanding, not confusion. Fraud." He tried to smooth it over. "Mrs. Carrington, that kind of statement could be damaging too." "That's the point," I said. "It's the truth." He paused again, then finally said, "I'll speak with my client." I thanked him, hung up, and sat for a long time in the quiet. I wasn't sure if it was victory I felt or exhaustion. Maybe both. When the documents arrived the following week, I read every word. The numbers were right, the fees covered, the confession printed clearly in ink. I signed my name at the bottom. Steady hand, no hesitation. The next morning, I went to the bank to close one final account, the one Daniel had tried to control. The teller didn't ask questions when I closed the account. She handed me the cashier's check with a polite smile and slid the paperwork across the desk. 30 years of deposits gone in one signature. I drove straight to the credit union 2 counties over. No branch nearby. No way for Daniel to wander in and charm a teller. It felt like sealing a vault no one else had the key to. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Just packed up what I needed, sold what I didn't, and left the rest behind. The new house was small, a cottage just outside Asheville, tucked behind a ridge of trees and surrounded by silence. No one knew my name there. That was the point. Each morning I walked a winding trail that looped through the woods and back to my porch. My pockets held only 2 things, the house key and a small envelope of cash. Just enough for groceries or coffee, nothing traceable. The neighbors waved politely, but didn't pry. I liked that. No questions, no assumptions. I was just the woman who moved in late in the season, kept to herself, and painted the porch rail in quiet strokes. On the 7th morning, my phone buzzed. I hadn't heard his name in weeks, hadn't seen it light up the screen. Daniel. 1 missed call, then another. I turned the phone over and left it face down on the counter. He'd made every payment on time. The lawyer said he signed each check himself. But not once had he asked to meet. Not once had he apologized. Not in writing, not in voice, not in silence. By the 10th call, the phone stopped buzzing, and the house felt still again, as if even the walls were beginning to forget him. That afternoon, I opened the envelope and set a few bills aside. I took the rest to the corner bakery and ordered coffee and a fresh roll. I sat by the window, sunlight warming the side of my face, and started to sketch a small herb garden for the yard. The wind moved gently through the trees, just enough to rustle the edges of the newspaper on my lap. I brushed it flat and kept reading, eyes skimming a line I'd already read 3 times. I wasn't in a hurry. Out here, nothing pressed in. The yard was half grass, half gravel, with a few empty planter boxes I'd been meaning to fill. A pair of birds pecked near the fence, scattering sunflower seeds I'd tossed down that morning. One of them hopped closer, watching me like it had a question it wasn't sure how to ask. There was no television inside, no couch, no microwave. The walls were bare, except for the one photo I'd brought with me, just me, younger, holding a baby in a blue knit cap. The baby who would grow into a man who once said, "You don't need it anyway." He was wrong. I needed exactly this. The kind of quiet that doesn't beg to be filled. The kind that isn't absence, but presence of self, of breath of choice. The money arrived on the 1st of every month. Automatic deposit minus legal fees minus damages. $700 left, then nothing, or everything, depending how you counted. I still hadn't replaced the couch. I didn't miss it. I sat outside most days anyway, feet in the sun, back to the wind book in hand. The coffee pot sang when it was ready, and the house stayed warm with the windows open and the stove lit. The last envelope I'd gotten from the lawyer included a summary sheet. Final 3 payments scheduled, it said. Neat, clinical. I folded it into a drawer next to the matches and the spare keys. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't need to. The check said enough. He could sign his name month after month, and that would be the last thing I'd need from him. Proof that even silence could speak. In the afternoon, I clipped lavender for the table and boiled water for tea. The birds came back. I didn't move. I just let the sun touch my face as the steam curled from the cup.